So let's look at cascading style sheets, and one of the things I want to talk about is the way that style is actually attached to a file. Now there are three ways to actually attach CSS to an HTML file. There's inline, internal and external. So I'll just go through these and show you some examples of these. Let's start with inline. Now this is some HTML, very familiar sort of looking HTML. We've got some paragraphs and an H2. And one of the ways to actually insert style into this document is actually to insert it directly into the tag. And the style for this looks something like this. We'd go style equals, and then in quotes, we have a whole bunch of style rules separated by semicolon. And these style rules look exactly like the ones that we've created when we did CSS before. So if you look at the second one here, you can see we're saying that the font size is 12 point, and then we're setting the color. So what we would do with that is we would actually embed it inside the HTML element. So for example here, if you have a look at the first paragraph, what we could do is we could just clear a little bit of space inside that tag, and then we could place the style directly in there. And what that will do is that will actually apply that style just to that paragraph. So clearly if we wanted to apply some style to the second paragraph, we'd actually have to embed it inside there as well. Now there are some advantages to that, in that you can see where the style is actually being used because it's actually being directly embedded inside the page. It is an approach that was commonly used, so you can see that in the sort of very old HTML generators that are out there that have been knocking around for a very long time. But so historically, that's the way that we used to do things. But as you've already deduced, lots of repetition, we can't reuse it, and it returns us to that notion that we're mixing the design in with the content, which isn't helpful if we wish to actually reuse the content or apply a different design. It's going to be very difficult to go back and actually change that file. So although inline still works, it's not an approach that we tend to use. Let's look at the second one then, which is internal. So this is an internal style sheet. And what this is all about is actually inserting the style at the head of the document. So our HTML document will have HTML in it, and it will also have CSS in it, but the CSS will be at the top of the document, and we place it inside the head. Now there's an actual HTML tag that we can use for this. It's called style, and we go style type equals text/CSS to indicate the type of the text we're actually inserting at that point. And then we have a collection of style rules. So if you look at the second example on this slide, you can see those. And what we would do is we'd actually make some space at the top of the document, and we would insert that in the head. Now, there's an advantage to that. It means you're only getting sort of one notional page from the web server. You're not having to pull out the HTML and the CSS file. And you can see the style information that's directly associated with the page because it's actually embedded in the page. But, take it a step further. Think about a typical website that could have very many pages, and that would require us to actually embed the style in each page. So what would happen if the style is changed? If suddenly we decide we don't want something to be green, we want it to be blue, we'd actually have to manually go in and edit every single one of those pages. And if the style was actually being changed in a much more significant way, that would be really problematic. So again, sometimes that can be useful if you're just sort of knocking a page together and you want to sort of prototype the design and see what it actually look like, but it's not something that we really use in practice. So clearly the approved and the appropriate way to actually attach style is to use an external style sheet, and that's the way that we've done it before. And to do that, what we do is we add the link element at the top of the document, as you've seen. We put it in the head of the document, we just add a link, and it looks like this, and I'll go rel style sheet type text CSS, but the most important bit is the third element here, which is the href, which points at the name of the file. And that's really good because, as we've seen, it keeps the style separate from the design, And it's great for maintenance of large sites. So, you could have a site that's got 500 web pages and you have all the CSS in a single page, in a single file. And if you have to make a change, you make a change to that file, and that change immediately ripples through all the HTML pages that are using that style file. The disadvantage is that you have to retrieve the HTML page and the CSS, but nowadays it doesn't really make much of a difference. External style sheets are, as I've indicated, the preferred mechanism for using most sites nowadays.